What's good, chat? I'm back from the dead again. Today we're going to take a look at this video on YouTube about the Talmud. The Talmud is disgusting. How could he say something about my holy book so disrespectful? What Talmudic rabbis don't want the Gentiles to know. From Born Again Barbarian, this has 1 million views. You obviously know that if there's something about the Talmud online with lots of views, it's gotta be preaching love and positivity about Judaism. It's gotta be. Anyways, let's watch his video, and I'll try not to crash out, I guess. I'm totally gonna crash out, but it's good. We'll see what he says.
Today I'm going to show you something so evil and so vile in this book right here, which I'll be showing you in closer detail, that's probably going to really shock you. And it is certainly something that the Talmudic rabbis do not want people to understand.
Talmudic rabbis, yes, we are rabbis who learn the Talmud. I'm much younger, I wouldn't put myself on that pedestal. But Talmudic rabbis implies that there are rabbis that only learn Talmud, and their end-all be-all of Judaism is Talmud, which isn't true. Everyone learns the Talmud, but obviously, as we know, because we're all educated people, that the Talmud isn't the final book of law. The Talmud is ancient Jewish Reddit and rabbi discussions a few thousand years after the Torah was made. There's also this big lie that Jews are allowed to lie about the Talmud, which isn't true. It actually says the opposite in the Talmud, so I just want to put that out here right now before I have people in the comments saying that I'm allowed to lie, apparently. It's the biggest cope of an argument, by the way. Oh, you're allowed to lie, so therefore, like, nothing you say is true. I'm like, where does it even say that? But sorry, let's continue.
People to know. What I have here is the Talmud, the Steinsaltz edition, volume 7, Tractate Kitabut, part 1.
The Steinsaltz edition of Kesuvos, I'm pretty sure. Okay. There's a... Let's explain some context of what exactly the Steinsaltz edition of the Talmud is. And I'll explain what exactly this version is from a personal story of me in yeshiva. I know, guys, Jewish high school, it's crazy. When I was in yeshiva and I was learning Talmud in depth for the first time, I was good at deciphering the hidden words that are in the Talmud, because obviously, you can't read the Talmud literally. You have to read it with the commentary, and a lot of it you have to fill in the blank with, which is sort of what the rabbis are for. They're explaining the hidden words that aren't fully in the Talmud. There's a lot of that going on. Which is why it's so good for your brain, because it teaches you how to think and fill in the blank, essentially. I was pretty good at filling in the blank because, I'm like a genius. But I had difficulty translating the literal words from Aramaic to English. Now, there was just so many new words that it was a lot for me when I was first starting. So when I was getting into the Talmud and I was sick of learning it, I would just pull out the Art Scroll Schottenstein edition of the Talmud, which is... it's the greatest version. It pretty much tells you everything that's in the Talmud perfectly and clearly, what exactly everything is saying with all the context. I advise everyone to learn that version of the Talmud if they're gonna even learn the Talmud. But my teachers saw this and they're like, yo, Tzvi, you need to learn how to freaking learn it. You gotta get your brain going. So my teacher got me a Talmud known as the Steinsaltz edition of the Talmud, which is what he has here. That looks even more modern day for some weird reason. Mine had more like Hebrew on it. So I don't even know if that's the proper version, but I'll assume it is. The Steinsaltz version of the Talmud, and literally what my rabbi was teaching to me in yeshiva, he said this version of the Talmud, it's not as clear and explained as the Art Scroll version, so you still have to use your brain. But what they do is they translate every single word of the Aramaic literally. That way you have the literal translation of the words, but they're not giving you all of the details and all of the commentary so that you could still figure that out on your own. So he said, Tzvi, you're good at figuring that stuff out. You just don't know the translations that well. So you should learn this version of the Talmud. That way you could pick up the Aramaic words literally, but then fill in the blanks in the commentary by yourself. This freaking guy right here, I assume he's about to read this whole thing with this translation, which is literal translation, without any context or commentary or anything that's going on. So this is already big red flag from someone who has learned multiple versions, including this version. And that's so much context to explain. We're only 25 seconds in the video, but I'm just saying, this is how they build on something that's not true.
You can see it right there. I did a video on these a little while ago, the whole set. We have the whole thing. Cost us over $2,000 for this. And the fruits
this guy bought an entire sauce? That's
for this are going to start paying off. Right now, believe it or not, my 10-year-old son is actually going through one of these and he's writing down notes for me. So anything he sees that's heretical or nonsense, he's actually writing notes. He's got a...
You're making your 10-year-old son go. So before you even learned the Talmud, you're making your 10. You know how hard it is to learn. You know, okay, let's just
think somewhere around 40 or 50 different page numbers and notes. The Lord is blessing my son greatly. I'm actually really blown away by it. Please do pray for Oliver.
Yes.
The Lord's doing a real work in my son's life. Okay. And he actually asked to do it. He said, Father, could I start looking through those? I'd like to find some things, see what they actually say. And
this guy's clearly
it's
a
amazing
Talmud
what
expert.
the Lord is doing. And I think it's a lot of you have been praying for him, so I think that has a lot to do with it. But I'm very blessed to have a son like him. But I'm going to show you something here, which is going to be very horrible. And I'm not going to read certain parts because of YouTube's policies and things. And so I'm going to let you read it. And I don't really like to read horrible, wicked stuff.
I know exactly what he's going to read, and I know that it's blatantly just stripped of explanation, because that's what the Steinsaltz Talmud is. It's going to be about relations, etc.
Mishnah, whatever the Hebrew is there, it has already been established in a previous Mishnah.
What the fuck? Mishnah, whatever the Hebrew is. Okay.
Above 10b, that a woman who is presumed to be a virgin at the time of her marriage is entitled to a ketubah of 200 denarim. Whereas a woman who is presumed to be a non-virgin at the time of her marriage is entitled to a ketubah, marriage agreement is what a ketubah is, of 100 denarim, a mina, whatever the...
Yeah, that's a currency. So basically, when they get married, they're entitled to this much money from what's written in the document, depending on the situation, right? Obviously, virginity is important in Judaism. Obviously, there's a lot of tradition going on here. But let's see where this goes.
Mishnah, we are about to consider, continues in its efforts to determine which women are considered virgins for the purpose of the ketubah and which are treated as non-virgins. If a
Okay, so we're talking about what's considered a virgin and what's considered someone who isn't a virgin, right? Because for marriage, obviously virginity is very important in Judaism, so they're gonna, I guess, bring up situations of virginity and see what the context is, because we need to figure out the final law of how much money you have to give them based on if they're a virgin or not.
Grown-up man has intercourse with a less than 3 years old. Are you seeing this? And they're not condemning this. Or if a young...
Oh, are you? Oh my God, this is like, I feel like it's, I'll be honest, the context is very much there, actually. So I don't know how that's at all how you're reading it. Like, I'm like, oh, he's probably reading out of context. No, he's just like he's just being stupid. I'm like, try it. Where the Mishnah literally brings up where we're figuring out like virginity, and we're figuring out like giving money to someone if they're considered a virgin. Unfortunately, you have cases, right? And these cases need to be discussed because we need to figure out the law where, God forbid, a man freaking R-words a 3-year-old. Like, that's a thing that happens, unfortunately, right? God forbid. But these are things that happen, right? So the rabbis are like figuring out, okay, if God forbid something like this happens, what's the case? Like, how does the kasuba work for how much money? Like, is it like, are they still considered a virgin? And the Talmud goes into a whole discussion about it, that they are considered a virgin because virginity involves consent, and also the hymen hasn't finished developing. A lot of very technical answering, and a lot of people you could just read it like, if you read it out of context, you're like, it's like, oh, why are you even discussing these things? But and like, it's like, yeah, like, it's a tough thing to discuss. But like, God forbid, if there's a situation where like something happens to a child, we need to know what the law is. Like, what is the situation? Like, are they a virgin? Like, these are unfortunate situations that come up in life, and we need to figure out what to do in that situation. And obviously, this is also like ancient rabbi discussion going on. So like, how much of this ends up being final law? I mean, I'd have to take a look at it again. But even like with the context, yeah, it's saying it pretty bluntly because you're reading the Steinsaltz version of the Talmud, which I've talked about before. But where does it imply that? Like, you're implying that you're allowed to have relations with a child, you creep. Like no, that's not what it is. How's it even remotely saying that? It says it very like factually and boringly. So maybe that's like, I guess, kind of that you don't like that. You want it to be said in a more soft way, which I could agree with you on. Remember, it's the Steinsaltz edition of the Talmud, which is translated very literally, and you have to put it with commentary commentary and with like those hidden words to understand what the rabbis were actually talking about, because a lot of Aramaic translated literally comes off much more bluntly than it did in Aramaic.
A young boy less than 9 years old has had with a grown woman. Or if a woman has been injured by a stick and as a result has been ruptured. In each of these cases, the woman is entitled to a ketubah of 200 denarim when she marries.
Yeah, I really don't see what's wrong with anything. Nowhere does it imply that you're allowed to have relations with it. I don't even know where you saw that. Even reading it literal definition word by word without where does it even imply that you're allowed to have relations with a child? It literally says if right over here, if a grown-up had relations. And the way we learned it in yeshiva is if, God forbid, a grown-up man had relations with and because unfortunately that happens. Unfortunately, it's disgusting, but that's a thing that happens. What are the laws? So maybe if you read it in this more boring version of how the Talmud is translated, I guess it doesn't sound as angry, I guess. There's a lack of emotion. It's just more matter-of-factly speaking. But it doesn't even imply it doesn't even imply that you're allowed to have relations with, and by the way, this is where they have the whole thing that you're allowed to do things to 3-year-olds. And this is their source right here. And what's funny is he's reading it directly, literally from the source, and it doesn't even imply that whatsoever. It's literally saying if a situation like this happens, how much money would they get by marriage, because we're trying to figure out if they're considered a virgin or not, because that's important in Judaism. Nowhere does it say that you're allowed to do it. It's just talking about if those situations happen, because unfortunately those situations, that's a thing. We can't pretend that doesn't happen. It's a thing that happens. We have to figure out what's going on here.
Okay, and you can keep on reading there. You can pause it and read it if you really want to.
A woman who engaged with a boy who's under is considered a virgin. See, that right there does require commentary. I'll tell you exactly what it's talking about there. Right, it says with a boy of that age is not considered a significant ... which without proper commentary, you could take that as it's not significant, meaning it's just not considered a thing, therefore you're allowed to do those things, when in reality what it's saying there, which is why it's important to read everything with proper context and not just a literal translation of blah blah blah, is because a boy that age hasn't physically matured yet, Judaism doesn't consider it a loss of virginity from the woman because the boy isn't physically mature yet. So from a halachic status, from a ruling status of literal virginity, the woman would still be considered a virgin in regards to contractual marriage payment obligations. However, that is still rape, and that's not allowed. It's important to clarify that. But the Talmud is gonna ask those uncomfortable questions, because these questions, they gotta be asked in case those situations happen. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun to talk or learn about. But we need to know what to do in these situations, and we're not just gonna let it sit in the air and let them just be yo, screw off, good luck. No, we have to figure out these situations. I can understand how people could read it without context and it could be confusing, but that's why you don't learn the Talmud without context. You have to learn it with the context. And this version of the Talmud is just not a good version to learn it with full context, in my personal opinion, from literally learning this version of the Talmud, for literally just to translate words of Aramaic.
Now, I take great issue with that. My son, which I mentioned earlier, is 10 years old. And according to this Satanism right here, a Jewish woman, could have a relationship with my 10-year-old.
I want to crash out so hard. I want to say slurs, but I'm technically a rabbi, so I shouldn't stoop to those levels. But you can see how it's so easy for someone who has no clue how the Talmud works and anything related to it, how they could just read something, blanket statement, no commentaries, not even a clarified translation of it, and just come to their own reasonings. They have this whole thing that Jews hide Talmud. They're hiding the Talmud from the Goyim. Now, they're secrets. You know why we're hiding Talmud from the Goyim? It's because some Goyim are so stupid that they read it literally, and they ruin the Talmud, and they lie about it. Yeah, I'm crashing out. It doesn't say anywhere there that you're allowed to do it, and then they'll go on Twitter and say that it's a commandment for them to do it. It's literally saying, in hypothetical scenarios, what would be the law in regards to the ksuba of how much you pay them, because virginity is a big crucial part in regards to how much you pay them in the Jewish religion. So if God forbid something like this happened, what would he, they're stripping it of all of that. It's disgusting. It's a disgrace. I will not stand for this. That's why I'm sitting. And this happens every single day on Twitter. And Jews like me are just crashing out. They're like, what the flip? This is what the...
And if I was a Jew, hey, that 3-year-old girl over there, she's really hot. Excuse me?
You are an idiot. I want to call you a slur, but I'm just going to call you an idiot. This is you don't know how to learn the Talmud. The only version you have of learning the Talmud is a literal Aramaic, literal word-by-word definition, which isn't how you learn the Talmud. You need to learn it with commentary. You need to learn it with all of the details, because I literally learned that version in yeshiva specifically because I wanted to know the literal translation of Aramaic without having it fully explained to me so that I could get smarter. And the Talmud isn't a book of law, which we've clarified over and over and over. Like, by the way, like all this is stupid because, like it's not even a book of law. And then you're going to have the chutzpah to then say that you're allowed to do these things, because even in that literal translated version of the Talmud, it doesn't even imply that. It's literally just talk about a hypothetical. Like, it doesn't even say that you can do that. Like how do you even get that? Like, I mean, maybe if you're trying to find the evil in everything, you could get to that. But I mean, I was honestly surprised. I was like, oh, it's actually like, you know, and the part where it talked about relations with like a little boy, like, yeah, that needed more clarification, which I gave, you know.
And this is what these Jews at the Torah Institutes are learning. I'm going to go learn the Talmud. I mean, maybe they're not all learning the Talmud and things, but a lot of them do. Takes 7 years to go through this garbage.
That's disrespectful.
I wonder what kind of horrible things go on in these families, between these families, when their holy book right here that they deny the word of God to uplift this. And this holy book says, 3-year-old girl. If you're a man, you're a woman, 10-year-old or a 9-year-old, excuse me, 9-year-old boy. Oh, well, that's just conspiracy stuff. That's been debunked. We've fact-checked it, and it's not true. I just showed it to you.
Yeah, and what's funny is what you showed me doesn't even imply that. And like even in the one part that like could maybe be implied, it's like easily explained in about 2 seconds. But you're not gonna, you don't want to learn that research. You don't want to be corrected. Apparently, you just want to believe your lies. And you'll go on YouTube and you'll post a video that has 1 million views. This is one of the most viewed videos of the Talmud on YouTube. Straight up lies shoved down people, like blatant lies shoved down people's throats. I mean, he literally, what's funny is like he literally showed like what was going on there, and no, like it literally says if something like that were to happen, right? And and they're just saying that like, oh, you're allowed to do these things. Like, no, we're just talking about what, God forbid, if it did happen, you know, like. And they're like, oh, but that's still weird to talk about. I'm like, so what should we do? Just like let him like just fuck off? Just like good luck with your situation. You know, like go to another religion, I guess, where Judaism can't help you with that. Like, sorry that we asked the tough questions in Judaism so that we could figure everything out for everybody. Like, I'm sorry if your religion doesn't do that. Like, I don't know. Do y'all just like freaking say, well, guess we're screwed? Like I don't know.
Horrible things. Beef. Jump up 2 verses to verse 13. Who was before a blasphemer and a persecutor and injurious.
Oh, I think he's preaching Jesus now. That's great. You know, get new Christians by hating on Judaism sounds very nice. These sort of things are happening every day online, and Jews like me we're all crashing out. And I crashed out a bit in this video. I was a little unapologetic. This guy's an idiot. He's an idiot. He's just an idiot. I'm not. I don't care anymore. I'm sick of idiots saying stupid idiot things. You are an idiot, and I will not stand for this idiocy anymore. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to be doing more of these because no one else is. So I guess I'm the best we have. I didn't choose this life. The life chose me. Here's a video of me debunking Nick Fuentes' Judaism lies on a podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow my Twitch if you want to ask me questions live. Literally, God bless.